this year has gone so fast, man.
Welcome back to the program. It's time for Opinion Court. Please do get in touch with us. 22422, that's our SMS line. We'd love to hear from you. Or you could tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya, at Citizen TV News. I am at Ann Kiguta, and with an E. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court. It allows us to follow up with your feedback. We're discussing the vetting of public officers. The Public Appointments Committee that's chaired by the Speaker today published the names of the nominees who have recently been nominated by President Uhuru Kenyatta to fill up various cabinet secretary positions and other. And it has basically invited the public through the publication of those names today to give their views, I believe, for about 7 days. So here to discuss the role of Parliament in vetting these officers and whether it's a successful exercise or not are legislators Opiyo Ndai and Johnson Sakaja across from me, and in the middle is our resident analyst, Edward Kisiangani. You're all welcome to the program. Prof, I want to start with you. Has Parliament proved to be a competent and capable body when it comes to vetting public officials?
No. I think if you look at what Parliament has done, at individual level there are some very competent people within Parliament who can still do very good vetting. But looking at the way the past, how vetting is done, from the time jobs are advertised, people are appointed, the executive plays a big role in influencing the outcome of the vetting within Parliament. And you can always see it. Even when they invite the public to say certain things, you can see the determination by the executive through certain parliamentarians to make sure certain names sail through. The result of this, is what you are seeing now. There are certain people who have not performed well in the public domain. And even when we go back to the first cabinet, you remember there was one cabinet minister who the public thought should be a cabinet minister, that is tourism. And because she failed miserably in a number of things. But there was determination by the executive to have her appointed, and she was appointed.
Has she failed in a number of things, or was she not seen to be as eloquent as one would expect?
She didn't have a certain information. Maybe at that time she said she was scared. You can't be scared when you are going to serve a public. You are going to serve the republic. So on that alone, she looked like she didn't know a couple of things. So in the opinion of most of us as members of the public, probably another choice should have been made. But you could see, Anne, that apart from her, we shouldn't even focus on her. There are many other appointments that took place. And when they appeared for vetting, the determination by the executive through certain members of Parliament to have them appointed is what is causing this jam. So Parliament has individually very competent people to do the job. But because of the influence of the executive, they don't do a good job. And in the end, they approve what the executive already wants to be approved. And in that case, we end up with the public servants who probably don't perform to our expectations.
Okay, do you feel that way?
And the last part of it is this.
Yes.
Within Parliament itself, some of the people who are serving on different committees, including the vetting committees, have also questionable integrity. So when you say now they vet, they are not angels from God and from heaven. They are just human beings. Some of them stole elections, some of them rigged them. So then they sit there to pass judgment over others. So probably they will approve crooks. And so that is where the challenge is.
Does the executive have some undue influence on the legislature when it comes to that?
And to be honest with you, on this matter, I'll have to agree with the Prof. Yeah, because again, in this country, it's important that at times such as this one, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. Parliament has got two problems in so far as vetting is concerned. One is lack of capacity in those vetting committees, as is rightly put it. As you know, parliamentarians come from all shades of opinion and backgrounds. But secondly is political experience. As you rightly put it, sometimes the vetting process is like basically going through the motions. Because you know at the end of the day, if the executive is determined to have somebody appointed or approved, he or she will be approved.
What is it exactly that the executive does to force your hand?
The executive, you know, is represented in those committees by MPs from the coalition that is in power. Yeah, and that is very clear. And that once they have got the message that you want this person to be approved, he or she will be approved. And therefore, most of the members in those committees resigned fit. They just say, fine, let us go through the motions. I remember in 2013. When we were doing a vetting in one of the committees, I won't mention which one, I did dissent, okay, alongside some two other colleagues of mine. It was seen as an unusual thing, okay? And interestingly, along the way, I was vindicated in a big way by the performance of this particular person.
Who specifically did you dissent?
Well, I don't want to get into describing the character of the person in this forum. But the most important thing is that I believe with the passage of time, now that we are going into this new wave of vetting, perhaps we are going to do a better job, because we have learned again through experience that when we don't do things right, they come back to haunt us. Yeah.
Okay, Sakaja, you know, how, just break it down for the public how the members of various committees are picked, and the question that he's brought up of the technical competency of some of these members to vet technocrats is doubtful, because either they lack the educational qualifications or they're sketchy at best, even if they have them. Talk to us a little bit about that.
First of all, it's very interesting to hear Opiyo Wandayi expressing such not just disdain but lack of belief in the institution in which he serves. This is one of the new things that has come with this constitution, that state officers nominated to serve are actually vetted, and it's obviously something that we need to develop much better. But the principle behind it is a very simple principle, that one, the sovereign power of this country rests with the people, and they express it through the elected representatives. Those elected representatives are in parliament. So if there's any question as to the quality of the elected representatives who actually take part in this vetting process,
blame it on Kenyans?
It's not a blame. It's for Kenyans to realize that the roles actually being undertaken by parliament include that of vetting and many other serious roles. Secondly, how do we put these members into different committees? I don't know how court does it. What Jubilee did when we got our candidates for the election, we got them to sign what we call the I Believe Creed, and in that creed they gave their CVs and their technical expertise. So a lot of those who've been in finance, whatnot, find themselves in the finance related committees. Those who've been involved in ICT or energy find themselves in the relevant committees, you know, with respect to the different areas of expertise. Does the process need to be improved? Yes, it does need to be improved. And you realize that the members, when they sit there, they're representing the people who elected them. But Parliament has Secretariat. Parliament has a budget office. Parliament has different clerks who actually come and assist members of Parliament with the technical information. However, one thing you must realize is that vetting is not a technical interview. There's a difference between an interview and vetting. Vetting, if you look at the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, is actually supposed to look at the suitability of that person to serve in that office. It's not about the technical capacity. But
is that part of the, perhaps even one of the most primary things in terms of determining who sits where?
Not necessarily. You might have
their technical ability to handle the job.
You might have a good CV that shows technical capacity. But there are things like how you deal with people that can make you lose a job. And even when you say that Parliament is just a conveyor belt, there have been instances in the past where the executive has wanted somebody appointed and Parliament has actually rejected it, in fact led by Jubilee. And I'll give the example of Ambassador Monica Juma. She came to Parliament, the executive really pushed for her to get appointed, but members felt that in as much as she may have she's not being vetted again. In as much as she may have technical capacity, her interpersonal skills at that point, based on the members, and this is just the opinion, it's not my opinion, I don't think that was an issue, but based on the opinion of members, they went against it. So for you also to say that Parliament is a representation of the executive in terms of just being a conveyor belt is also not true, because history and evidence will prove you wrong. So it's a field, and I think what we need to do at this point is to improve the legislation around public appointments and public approval, parliamentary approval, to actually make sure that, one, there is direct engagement, not just because Parliament has a capacity to, which it has, but there is direct engagement of the specialists, whether it is HR, whether it is in those different fields, during the 7-week period. For example, today, advertisements have been put in the paper.
Right.
7 days, Kenyans have time to bring memoranda about those people. But in that same period, we can have the technical experts tell us, look, on this and this field, this person falls short or is the best for this job because of 1, 2, 3 things. So it's something that needs improvement, but Parliament is rightly within its mandate to play a role on behalf of the people. Unless Wandai wants to say that when he sits in that committee, he's not doing it on behalf of the people.
But has this been reduced to more of a political contest rather than a test of competency? Because even what he's talking about, you know, do you have the communication skills, etc. Some would say it's just pure politicking. Even for you to be... That MPs can't get their way with a certain, you know, public officer, and so because of that, they want some sort of undue influence on them and will come up with ridiculous things such as...
Even for you to have been hired here, it was more than just your CV. That's why you came for a personal interview. They looked at how you speak. They looked at how you interact, how you look on camera. There are things that are beyond. But we need to be, of course. I mean, if you... There are things that must be done on top of that. So the question that you must ask them is, one, is Parliament in its right place as representatives of the people to do the vetting? And if the answer is yes, then the question you should ask, to be pragmatic, is how do we build extra capacity for that to be done in a more objective way?
Exactly. That capacity is at the heart of the matter. Yeah, unless you address the capacity of the parliamentarians to be able to carry out this vetting exercise in a manner envisaged under Article 152 for cabinet secretaries and Article 155 for the principal secretaries, you will not achieve the desired results. And therefore, I think...
what would need to happen for that?
Yeah.
You know, do you need specialized training to vet?
Yeah, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah, but again, it starts from the point of elections. Yeah, because even if you say you want to match individuals to the committees that they best fit in, okay, at one point you will have to actually put somebody in a committee who is a member of Parliament. Okay.
I want to agree with him on the fact that members at the individual level lack that capacity. I'm saying, because I think it will be an insult to Kenyans who elected those members to say you elected people who can't do that work. And I don't want to agree with him on that. But what I'm saying is this: there needs to be some technical input to align the kind of questions, the kind of issues raised to what the law in the Constitution 152, 155 and the Public Appointments Approval Act actually intends, so that you don't have somebody rejected or approved for subjective reasons above and beyond what the law stipulates. So if I don't like the color of your nose, Kisiangani, I say, no, this guy should not be part of it.
But you see, there's a bit that I agree with. The technical capacity, even if we enhanced it, are we going to come out with the correct appointments, people who are competent to do the job for this republic? We can still have highly educated people with the technical know-how to deal with the job, but they will still succumb to the pressure of the executive. You have just given an example of Monica Juma, and I think you can even add the latest resignation of Anne Waiguru. If in politics there's something you call doublespeak, I'm sure if the executive wanted Monica Juma to sail through, it would have happened.
No. Yeah. And many more instances.
You think the executive set her up?
Yes, I think. I'm telling you, they didn't want
the many instances. But the one
they wanted to have to sail through.
They didn't want her in the
they left her to her own design.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if the executive didn't want to succeed, the executive would not.
On that.
Listen. If the executive didn't want her to succeed, the executive would not have reappointed her to one of the most crucial dockets in this country, which is foreign affairs. But the executive would have let her stay there, or actually fire her.
Maybe now needs more than
there are a number of PSs who have actually lost their jobs. Why didn't she? If the executive didn't want her, why didn't she?
Actually, on the matter of Monica Juma, you cannot say the executive really wanted her.
They didn't want her.
Why is that?
It is common knowledge that there was no effort put in place to have her.
Even I put
even on the floor of their house.
Members didn't listen.
And
you cried more than the bereaved. And you know.
And that was suspect. Okay, let's move on from her. But you know what you keep talking about is the soft skills, and Prof, you didn't answer my question, which was, is vetting more about politics than it is about competency? Are we really after people with the right set of qualifications, or are we after the people who play the game the way we want it?
Betting in Kenya is a fashion show. So The people who turn up with makeup, but they look very beautiful. But when you look at them in the morning, it doesn't really.
Are you speaking from personal experience?
No, that's the truth is a fashion show, and after the fashion show, you go back to the basics. So for me, when you look at the vetting, it's a political arrangement. The executive sits down and says, "I want the following people to work with me," and Sakaja and Wandai. And so whatever happens, you must toe the line. And in our political dispensation where you have a winner take it all after the elections, you are intimidated. You saw the other day when some people intimidated Mheshimiwa Kabanda wa Kabanda, the company, for going against the grain. When they threaten you like that, and even one of the senior members of the community goes to a public rally and announces that you because you are fighting the mainstream political wing here, you will not win the elections. That threatens you. So if you go to parliament and vote against it, they will count you out. So it's a political arrangement rather than the question. They are not looking for competence. The person once the executive is convinced that this is a competent person, whether the fellow is competent or not, they go and load it over members of parliament. The members of parliament must fight for their freedom from the executive.
It does not work.
In fact, the evidence. If I may bring up the speed.
Yes.
You know, and I agree with the Prof entirely. you know, firstly, it has been a tendency amongst members of parliament to want to carry favor with the executive. Okay?
Including members from your coalition,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, including members from my coalition, I must admit.
Okay.
And that's why it is very difficult for members of parliament to objectively vet someone who has been brought before them to vet. Because they expect the person, once they are confirmed, to help them pursue their interests. And this is the real issue, really. And that's corruption, if I may call it so.
Let me put it to you this way also. It is also the rent-seeking from MPs that you're going to give candidates who really have what it takes to pass the most difficult time, unless they're willing to part with some gift or other to allow you to let them sail through. Those have been the accusations of Parliament, and if you go by the PAC committee, at least we do know for sure that graft is alive.
The fact is that you have somebody before you who is being vetted for appointment into a position, for instance, of cabinet secretary for roads, okay? And the MP vetting him or her is looking forward to visiting his office the following day, following week, to seek for support in terms of repairing his road back in the constituency. So there is no way you are going to have objectivity unless you have got the right kind of people who look at these things objectively.
I'm very happy that Opiondai has said that, because it shows the considerations his party took when placing members in committees. The consideration we took when placing members in committees is what are the areas of competence. and if the members from his party actually, and this is confessing on live TV, that the consideration the members of his party take when choosing someone is how they can access that person later, I want to assure you that is not the consideration.
He didn't say his
party.
I didn't say that.
You see Parliament. No, I mean I said it generally. You see, but you see, if you put people there because of what they can do, when somebody comes for vetting, and you ask them the appropriate questions that are needed, and many times a lot of these questions come from research departments in Parliament. I don't know where this other insinuation comes from. When you say members go for rent seeking, you know, it's a very popular thing to do, to berate individual members. But I want to ask him whether he's ever seen that money in his committee.
I haven't talked about money.
I've never seen it. People talk about it.
And we don't expect you to say otherwise.
And we never
I don't know why they approach me.
Now you want them to approach you.
Let me ask you something we keep hearing.
Let me ask you this question. You said it's about the stability. That is what the committee vetting people.
That's what the law says.
Yes, but then when you look at it, let's go back to the vetting of former. I mean, the first cabinet of Uhuru's. For some of us, we thought he should have done what, or Parliament in the vetting should have said, Charity Ngilu, by your training, you are not the right person for lands, for example. And it's not that you are insulting Charity Ngilu, you are just saying that you don't have that competence, and you tell the executive that. Then you could have also said that Macharia was not the right person for health. Some of us even raised that question, that Macharia was not the right person for health. Now, for the first time, you have appointed Muraguri and Cleopa Mailu, they have the competence to deal with health. So this is the kind of technical advice you would tell
and even beyond that.
Yes,
look at the link.
He asked me a question. Let me answer.
So I'm asking. I'm asking. So what do you advise? What do you advise? You still approve. When the executive comes up with a wrong appointment, you approve. When he comes with the right appointment, I'm sure
can he explain?
Would you allow me to answer? He's asked me a question. You know, in all fairness, it's good to allow me to answer.
Yes.
You have spoken about two individuals. Yes. And I think Kenyans are very fortunate that you're not part of the vetting committee. Because, one, example is Charity Ngilu. You said because of a training, and you don't understand what the role of a cabinet secretary is. A cabinet secretary, first of all, reads the policy, read Article 155 or 154, 152. You'd understand. Now, the person you're saying was unsuitable for that position is the person who, ask any lawyer in town today, they'll tell you how the land registry has been sorted out. They will tell you how many titles have been given. 1 million more than has been given in the history before. Even when people who you would have passed without that training, like James Orengo, Minister for Lands, did it. Number two, Cabinet Secretary Macharia. Macharia came from a banking background. He was head of NIC. One of the biggest challenges in our healthcare at that point was two issues. One is a matter of health financing. Who better to sort out the issue of financing of healthcare in this country, or even provide proposals and solutions than somebody who has a background in banking and financing? Secondly, the issue of equipment. The way we have been able to get equipment to all hospitals in this country is based on the fact that somebody who understands a financing model that can work in a country that we can't afford those machines now can do it. In this second phase, because those machines are there, we have dealt with health financing to an extent, and we can improve it. Right now we need execution. That is why at this point Macharia has been changed, not because he was corrupt. He was not even part of that list. He's been changed to make sure the person who comes in, Dr. Cleopa Mailu, is somebody who has run Nairobi Hospital successfully for so many years. It's about, you know,
I think my friend Honorable Sakaja,
if you have a one-track mind, for me to get somebody to be in charge of health, it must be a doctor. For somebody to be in charge of roads, he must be a different world.
Which one is he living in?
No, he's lost. For example,
I wish you could. Honorable Sakaja, with all due respect, I think you are living somewhere very far from this country. You know, when you want to look at what has happened even now in this reshuffle or new wave of appointments, if critically looking at the competencies of these individuals and the dockets to which they have been assigned, you basically end up concluding that this is nothing other than a game of musical chairs. It is not anything aimed at enhancing efficiency in the public service. It's not anything aimed at enhancing productivity. It is basically a game.
Which ones do you disagree with? What do you disagree with specifically?
And it's
if you ask me,
yes, please.
If you ask me, you've transferred one Professor Kaimenyi from education docket to the lands docket. We all know.
So you wanted the lands?
No. We all know, with all due respect to Professor Kaimenyi and my colleague Sakaja, that Professor Kaimenyi performed dismally in the docket of education.
True.
Okay? What evidence do you have? What justification do you have that now in the lands docket he is going to perform better than he did in the education docket? Basically, you are trying to make Kenyans start thinking that this exercise is basically
a merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round.
It's a fashion show.
Or a fashion show.
It's a
circus. Oh dear. And we are out of time.
Because if you ask him, when an electrical engineer was appointed to head the Ministry of Roads, they never said it's incompetency during that time. When
but here we have got a case where
you don't necessarily at the level of cabinet secretary. You don't need somebody necessarily.
Correct.
You don't put a former policeman to be in charge of interior security, and because that is what is going to solve it.
But this at that level of leadership in government. Just listen. It's good to listen. At that level of leadership, you need somebody who can provide leadership and translate government policy to a ministry.
Based on
the technocrat in a ministry, the pure technocrat in the ministry is the permanent secretary or the principal secretary. that is common sense.
Then why do you have
and I can give you many more examples.
And unfortunately, though, we are out of time. I thank you for your views, and because you have both said that this needs changes, the way vetting is done. We hope to see some sort of legislation coming from either one of you to strengthen that process. Thank you.
Well,
we're back with the
you expect it to come through once you leave that.
My goodness.